Thank you for tuning in today to Experience Marshfield. This is a brand new program that we're giving, and it's going to be about all different types of people, all different types of businesses. We're very excited about today because today is our first show, and I'm sure you know Chris and Erin Howard.
Thank you for having us.
So we have a lot to go over today. I'm very intrigued by this, but before we get into everything you've done into downtown, which you guys are doing a great job, and we are very fortunate to have people like you and investors like you really taking a look at Marshfield. We're very thankful for what you do. But before we go there, tell us about you and how you met, and tell us a story.
Well, August, which is coming right up here, will be our 10th wedding anniversary, which reminds me I need to probably plan something for that. But
that would be a good idea.
Yeah, right. After you've been married for 10 years, you kind of figure those kinds of things out. But it'll be 10 years. We both worked at Renaissance Learning in Wisconsin Rapids. I started working there in 2000. It was my first real job after graduating college, and I was there for about 10 years. And we met in, what year was it? 12 years ago, so 2007-ish. And a lot of people worked there. It was like 500 people, working at that location for Renaissance Learning. And I had my eye on her, but I hadn't actually really met her yet. We worked in different departments. And one day I went down into the lunchroom for some tea, and she did too. And I got on the elevator, and it was one floor up. I was a pretty lazy guy back then. Not much has changed.
That's great.
But she saw me on the elevator, so she got on the elevator, much to my, excitement, because I've been had my eye on her. And we struck up a conversation, and I was a pretty shy guy. I still am, really. I knew full well what her name was, but I said, "What's your name?"
Smooth.
And she said, "Erin."
Start our relationship off of a lie.
Right. That's right.
I'm kidding.
Why don't you take it from there? So.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. So it was kind of cool. We both went back to our desks and we both started emailing each other, and I hit send first, and I just wanted to say he actually got Employee of the Month at Renaissance Learning, and so I congratulated him and stuff and said hello. And long story short, a couple of months later we started to date, and I don't know, it's kind of neat. And then later on, when we were like 4 months into dating, we were driving in his dad's truck. Everyone who knows us well knows this story, but basically we were driving in his dad's truck, hauling some stuff, and I recognized that the truck was very familiar, very similar to my dad's truck, and he made a call to his dad, and I made a call to my mom, and we found out that his dad bought my dad's truck after my dad died, and they didn't know each other. They lived in two different cities, so that was kind of a cool thing, just to, when we first started dating, that we had that connection. So
there were a lot of signs like that said, this relationship is meant to be.
Meant to be.
Yeah.
Well, especially when you both get thirsty at the same time. You go to the elevator. I mean,
right.
If those aren't signs, I
right.
don't know what is.
Exactly.
So then you got married. It'll be 10 years. How many kids do you have?
We have three.
Three.
Yep.
How old are they?
11 and 12. No, I'm just kidding. No. No.
That's great.
We have our oldest will be 9 in August. We have a girl. He's the boy, Isaac, and then Elena will be 8 in August. They're actually less than a year apart by 5 days. Elena came 2 months early, so that helped out in that. But and then we have a girl, Angeline, who turned 4 in February. So
wow, so fun ages.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Keeps us busy for sure.
Yeah.
We love
So
it.
you were in Rapids. Then when did you decide? Because you all do a lot of business here, and you own a lot of real estate. You own a fair amount of businesses. When did you decide, and what prompted you to come here to Marshfield?
Well, when we decided to get married, before I met Erin, I had a property in Marshfield. That was the first property in downtown that I purchased, where the Railroad Antique Mall was at 119 South Central there. And we used to rent the apartments upstairs, and we'd have a prospect, and we would drive from Wisconsin Rapids to Marshfield, and then I would wait, and nobody would show up, and I would call them, and they would say, "Oh, I found another place already." So that got a little bit old. That was part of it.
Yeah.
and just having a property here, and we just loved Marshfield. I've been familiar with Marshfield my whole life. My grandparents lived out near Powers Bluff, so I would visit them as a kid, and they would drive me to the mall in Marshfield, or downtown sometimes, and we just loved Marshfield. There's something about Marshfield that we kept having connection after connection here, and finally we just decided, we should move there.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny because I was born in Billings, Montana, but I grew up in Wisconsin Rapids, and I was the oldest child, so I think my parents were a little more strict on me compared to my younger siblings, and a lot of people my age would always go to Marshfield for reflections. They would call it Flex back then, and then they would go to the Nightmare, which was a big thing that is not here anymore. So growing up, I looked at Marshfield as like the place where teenagers go, but I never got to do that because I always had to stay in my area. So that's all I knew of Marshfield when I lived in Rapids, and I would come here with Chris. And then as we were kind of waiting in his truck and waiting for people outside of the building, we just kind of noticed things. We noticed the really beautiful outside of the buildings, and we noticed just a lot of things that we weren't aware of. And with the job and everything, we did decide let's move here. We didn't know anyone here. It was kind of fun to move into a city that we didn't know anyone and no one knew us, and it was kind of cool. Like, wow, let's start over. Like, this is going to be where we're going to, raise a family someday. And we were not planning on investing in property. He had a different job. I was planning on being a stay-at-home mom. I worked prior to that, I worked at Renaissance Learning, and then for a little over a year, I just managed a couple behavior homes, so it was more of the mental health field that I was into, and never ever thought that I would be in real estate.
It was just a hobby. Like the way I got into it is I was living in a duplex right after I moved back to Wisconsin, and it came up for sale. It was actually my grandmother's, and she passed away, and then the family sold it to me, so that was the first property that I actually owned, and I lived downstairs and rented out the upstairs, and then I moved to Rapids just to be closer to work, and rented out both. And from that, I just built a relationship with banks through that. And those were the days when banks would just lend money to anybody. Right before the whole crash happened,
right.
they would lend money to people like me, and it would mess up, Right. But luckily, it worked out in my case. And
they would rent, or they would lend to people like me.
People like me, huge mistake. No,
Right.
no, but it worked out in my case, and I made some good decisions as far as what properties to buy, and I wasn't trying to flip them for a quick buck. I wanted to fix them up and hold them and rent them just as like a long-term investment. That's really what the Railroad Antique Mall building was. There was 5 apartments upstairs, and then the Antique Mall downstairs, and then next door there was some office space that is now the Frey Knot Salon. We've renovated that since then. But I totally lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
So it's
Yeah.
very
Cut
interesting.
that, no.
Then. So then when you decided to move here, how long ago was then that you said, we're moving to Marshfield, we're going to be in Marshfield?
We've been here for 10
Yeah,
years.
so
10
we got
years.
married in August of 2009,
Yeah.
and then we moved here in November of that year. And one of the things why we chose here, another one I forgot to mention earlier, is we wanted to live in a historical home. We had that in common. We loved antiques, and we loved older homes and older properties. And we found a beautiful old Victorian house in Marshfield, and that was one of the big things. Like, oh, we want to live here. Raise a family here. The schools here were great and are great.
Yes.
And
We looked at over 50 homes. We looked in Wisconsin Rapids. In fact, the realtor that we were initially working with, I think, got tired of us.
she stopped calling us.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we ended up.
That's never a good sign.
I know when the realtor
No.
stops calling you, we're irritating her. But we finally found a house we wanted.
Yeah. But
And then we just called the realtor that was on that sign.
Is that right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we looked at Wisconsin. We considered staying in Rapids. We looked at Wausau. We looked in Stevens Point. We looked at quite a few houses here in Marshfield, and one of the houses that we looked at on our street that we're at now was available, but the one that we're currently in was for sale, but the sign was not up, and we wouldn't have been able to afford it at that time anyway. And so when we could talk about signs and things, everything happens for a reason. Later, when we actually could afford the house, that's when the sign appeared. But we found out a while ago prior to that it was for sale for quite some time.
Here's
on the market.
another sign. So we ended up buying that house, and later we found out that the guy who, where the Railroad Antique Mall building was built by William Knoll in 1887, right after the Marshfield fire. That guy built the house that we bought in Marshfield.
Is that
and we
right?
had no idea until we were doing research, and
Wow.
we're like, wow, this guy lived in our house and worked at the hardware store, that first building that I owned in
That was
Marshfield.
so
That's
fun.
amazing.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting, in the time that I've known you, I've never met two people that have more ability to have a vision, which is what you're telling me in a lot of these things. You can, which in many of the properties that you've developed and the businesses that you've helped, it seems like when you all walk in, you don't see it the way it is. You can see what it can become, and
Yeah.
that's a rare talent.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Bob, because I was just telling Chris, I was going back in my emails, I was cleaning my email inbox the other day, and I found a letter that I wrote to all the downtown businesses. It's almost going to be 2 years ago in September of 2017. And I was still the president of Main Street. We did not own the Charles. We didn't own the building where Mojo's is, and the plaza wasn't even built. And I remember it was a very controversial email that I drafted up because I was talking about our vision. I was talking about, we anticipate the downtown becoming a destination someday. We anticipate, restaurants and people eating outside and just painting this picture. And it was so fun to read because now the plaza is there, and there's Mojo's, and there's Mission Nutrition, there's Uptown, and we've done a lot of extensive stuff, even in the Charles, that most people don't know about. And a lot of people don't know this, but to the public, they see, based on what we tell them what our plans are. But we have plans already in the back of our mind 3 years from now that we don't tell people yet. So it's like I don't know if it's because we can't turn off our minds, but we basically, like, when you talk about vision, we ask ourselves, what do we want to experience? And we want to bring that to our community because we love to travel. And before we had kids, we did a lot of that. So a lot of the ideas that we have and the type of businesses that we want to bring in and the renovations that we do with buildings, it's something that we want to experience ourselves. And so
A lot of the renovations too, we have to give credit to our tenants. We work closely with our tenants, and all of these great buildings that are taking shape over the last couple of years. I mean, we have influence, but we talk to our tenants and we say, look, you've been dreaming about this for 10 years. We're not going to tell you what to do. We're going to give you suggestions along the way, and you're free to take or leave any of the suggestions that we give you because this is your baby, this is your dream, and we just allow them to implement what they've always wanted. Like Mojo's is a great example, Uptown now, Mission. I mean, we've done like construction stuff before, so we had that experience that they may not have, but they have a vision for what they want, and we let them run with it. I mean, some landlords would be like, what, you want to paint that wall? That's my building. And we tell our tenants, make this your building because you know what's going to make your business successful.
Yeah.
And that's how we work with them.
And I believe it's that mindset that maybe is why many of the businesses that are in properties, you bring up Mojo's, you bring up Uptown Coffee and others, Mission Nutrition. Helping them, you're right, I think many times what landlords do is you can only do this or you can only do this. But here, if I'm reading this correctly, you're blending the dreams.
Yeah.
And which I think is very powerful because that gives them much more ownership. They don't want to open a business like I can only do this, which I think is very, very impressive. It's a testament to what you all are doing. I want to go to when, however many years ago it was, where you decided, okay, now it's time we're going to start buying properties. What was the catalyst? What made that go?
I actually remember he was still working for his previous company that he was part owner for, and we were in the process of, I don't remember which building it was, but we bought another building, and he's like, Erin, and I was still kind of doing this on the side, kind of staying at home with my kids, and he said, Erin, if we buy this building, then you need to you know, this is something you're going to need to want to be able to do because I can't do it with my full-time job.
It's not a hobby anymore. Once we buy this one other building, it's a full-time job for one of us, and it can't be me because I have these other obligations right now. So do you want to do this as a career? Because if it's a no, then we can't buy this building. But it's a great opportunity, and it seems like it's something you love. Do you want to do this as a career?
Do you remember how many, because I feel like we've really done a lot over, was it maybe 6-7 years ago?
Or how long ago that was?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably about 6 years ago,
Yeah.
I think.
I don't remember what specific building it was, but for me, I guess what kind of hit for me is our kids were together so young when they were first born, and I joke about pushing them in the double stroller downtown, you know, because I would stay at home with them, and I would push Isaac and Elena downtown, and I would go to the different shops and, you know, just get to know some of those property owners and those business owners, and, you know, just establish a relationship with them. And sometimes they would vent to me about, you know, why can't they get certain customers in, or, you know, just whatever. Or sometimes they would really be excited about, yeah, I had this new customer come in, and it just made me start to have that passion for the downtown. And then Chris and I got a invite once because we renovated the outside of Railroad Antique Mall, and we got an invite. And we thought it was from the city. We didn't even know there was a Main Street program at the time.
Or what that was.
Or
even.
what it was, yeah. And so we went there, and they introduced themselves and stuff. And I personally was excited because it's like, wow, so I'm passionate about the downtown, but yet here's this group that is trying to do what I've been trying to do on the side as a mom, pushing my double stroller. You know what I mean? And then I just kind of started volunteering a little bit, and yeah.
There was one project in particular early on that I think made us realize that we can take a space that is terrible and turn it into something wonderful. It was, when we talked about the Railroad Antique Mall, when I bought that building, it came with half of a building next door where there was these ugly, ratty office spaces. I mean, the ceiling had been dropped down low with these nasty tiles, and the carpet was old, and it was really cheaply done. And we met Heather, who was cut our hair, and she had this dream of having a hair salon someday of her own. And she just had this vision she'd been thinking about for years and years and years. And we thought this space would be perfect for that if we just ripped all the junk out and she could just make it her salon. And just watching how excited she was about the project and just seeing it take shape, and then when it was done, it was so beautiful. I think that's when we realized that we can do this. We can take a space that no one wants to go into, that you feel awful walking into, and help turn it into something just wonderful.
And therein lies, I think, really the key to success, right? Is when you can look at that and have that mindset. Mm-hmm. Because as you all have seen, I mean, you've been a big influence in the Wenzel Family Plaza. That was huge. And much of the facade program in downtown, really a lot of that really started with you. And I'm interested to hear, I'm sure your audience is interested to hear, you've got the big dream, goal, or ambition, and you can see it. And it's coming to fruition. Now, with every big dream, goal, or ambition, there's folks over here that are going to tear it down, that are going to say, that can't be done. We've done it this way for 200 years. We don't want to do anything different. How do you, as a visionary, which clearly you are, how do you combine that to not let them, for lack of a better term, steal your dream, right? And how do you handle that?
Go ahead.
You know, it used to bother me when I was on Main Street. You know, he would always remind me, Erin, you focus on like the 2-3% that are the naysayers, or the ones that don't believe in what you're about, and then you forget about like the 97-98%. And so I think over time, what has helped me is I'm just looking at what we've done. Like, you know, I remember when we were first approached about the plaza, it was a very, very divided topic, you know. And, you know, you and I had talked about this in the past, you know, where people don't like change. You know, they fear what they don't know is going to happen. And for Chris and I, you know, we are go-getters. We believe, you know, you tell us it's not possible, we'll show you that it is. Like, we don't accept what people say, you know, because we believe in mind over matter. We believe in, you know, possibilities. And so we just, you know, I'll hear what you have to say. Okay, you know, you think it's not possible because of this, but I think that there's a different option that you're not seeing. And
I think it's trying to keep things in perspective too, because we're in the thick of it a lot of the times. And like when the plaza was just an idea, 5%, a vocal 5% were like, I don't want the plaza. And a vocal 10% were like, I'm all for it. And then you had 85% who really didn't even have an opinion yet.
like,
Right.
whatever,
But
you know.
now that it's here, they love it. You know, so keep it in perspective that you might be hearing some voices on each side, but it doesn't represent the people that are just going to go check out that concert.
The vast majority, and you have to
Yeah.
keep,
Yeah.
you know, I remember right when I was just coming in, just got elected as mayor, that the plaza was getting ready to open, and so there was still a lot of the back and forth, is this the right thing to do, blah, 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 which I was always a big advocate. I'm so thankful for many folks. It was a great public-private partnership. Many folks gave a lot of money to that.
Right.
And I always felt like they got kind of slighted
Yes.
a little bit. But what was very interesting is at the opening, I think they expected, you know, maybe 100 people, and that place was swamped. But then my wife and I, we always liked driving around on Saturday mornings, just going all over. And I remember one Saturday morning, it was a couple weeks after it opened up, we were going by, and it was a hot day, and there was a polka guy up there on the stage, and some of the folks from the senior center were right there walking around, you know, and they had help, and some people were sitting there just tapping. You had kids in the water feature, and then you had other people out there doing yoga.
Yeah.
All at this great gathering place, and that is the vision. I don't think a lot of people could see that.
Yeah.
But it was a great thing, and I know you guys have been instrumental in, you know, helping Mojos and Uptown Copy, and the list goes on and on. I'm excited to see this 3 to 5 year plan that you guys you kind of dropped that on, and so now, and I'm not going to press you on it, but it sure has the wheels spinning.
Yeah.
With all this tremendous success, I also know that you are great parents, and you love your kids dearly. How is this? How is that mold of being as successful as you are and still keeping that balance with the kids? How is
I think
that?
we have a really great opportunity with the kind of jobs. Now it's both of our full-time career. And it can be 24/7, but there's breaks throughout. I mean, yeah, sometimes we might have to show an apartment in the evening, but then sometimes maybe we can pick our kids up early from school and go out for lunch or something with them. So it is a juggling process. We probably work a lot of hours during the week, but they're flexible hours. So
Right.
it was worth the trade-off for us. It's not when you're at a 9 to 5, you can't necessarily do anything outside of that. You're chained to your desk for that long. But we work a lot, but we have more flexibility, I think, than a lot of people have. So we're very grateful that we can do that.
Yeah, it's kind of cute too, because you know your kids mimic what you do, and it's funny because sometimes, like if we're in the car, our kids will point out, "Oh, look at the bricks on that building, Mom." You know, if we're going downtown to a different city, they pick up on the things that we look at. You know, whether it's oh, look at the signage of that building, that was really cool, and it's cute because they see what we're passionate about, and they're starting to develop a passion for it too.
When Isaac was 2 years old, I remember walking through a building and I was putting it on graph paper and I was counting the steps. Maybe he was 3, and he started doing that too. I mean, quick story. So we were renovating this one building where we're adding stairs, and we're up at the top looking down, and Isaac says, "Dad, I better not fall down there because my body would break into pieces and God would have to fix me with tape."
At the Blodgett.
That's so great.
So we get our kids involved with what we do.
Right.
It's a lot of fun to
Well, it's always fun because, of course, we're Facebook friends, right? Everybody's got to be Facebook friends.
Right.
So I'm always intrigued by some of the meals that you post.
I do that a lot.
I mean, I'm looking at like, all right, okay. And then one other thing is you are extraordinarily creative. You create a lot of necklaces and.
Yeah, I actually made these.
Yeah, I figured you did. So time is just, it's interesting because you both look so calm. And clearly you work a lot, but it sounds like it's a lifestyle.
It really is. Like Chris really nailed it. It's not your typical 9 to 5. Like we absolutely genuinely love what we do. It's a passion of ours.
I don't feel like we're at work.
Yeah.
There's just these things we have to get done today. You know, it's just like.
And there's some downsides too. I mean, like we have moments where, you know, a lot of people might see all the gains and the successes, but they don't recognize all the losses too, or
Right.
the hardship that we go through, or the money that we lose, or the things that I found someone that had passed away, actually. You know, I've never experienced that before, and with having over 300 tenants in a span of 10 years, it's gonna happen,
Right.
you know. But there are moments that are hard too. But it's worth it because we love. It sounds cliche, but we love our tenants. We love seeing the smiles on their faces when we tell them that we can help you, you know, accomplish what it is you want to do. Or let's say we talk to someone that, you know, they are saving up for a house and they just don't have enough savings, but you know, no one ever really considered renting to them before because maybe their credit wasn't as good. You know, we want to take chances on people because we believe in that. And
We make everybody fill an application out, but we can tell a lot more about them just talking to them and seeing what
yeah.
kind of
It's more than a
people they
credit
are.
score.
oh,
Because
Yes.
life happens.
it
Yes.
really
Life
does.
absolutely happens.
There's a lot of psychology in it too. Like
Right.
you can just tell, you know, based on someone's questions that they ask you and how they interact with you, and you know, and even business-wise, like with some of the businesses that we work with, I'm serious, but I kind of joke about it. I don't care how awesome your business plan is. I don't care how cool your product is. Like if you don't have that passion, then it's probably not going to work out. You know,
Right.
you've got to have that passion. You got to believe in the city of Marshfield. You got to believe in the downtown. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Right.
You know, you got to. It's a team effort, and we really try to work with our tenants, especially the commercial space ones, because we recognize they are taking on a big risk. When you're opening up a business, you're putting in thousands of dollars. You know, it's a brand new business. It's something you've never ventured before. And we want them to know that if you're struggling, we're going to struggle with you. If you're doing well, we're going to be right there clapping and saying congratulations, because we want them to be successful.
In order for us to be successful, you said it great, they have to be successful, because if they're not successful, then we're going to have an empty space, is what we don't want. And I think that's why one of the reasons why we're so supportive of them. And look, you know what's going to make your business successful. We don't want to stand in your way. We want to help with that.
Right.
So I have two final questions for you. The first is, what would you say, what has been your experience in business here in the city of Marshfield? Have you felt the support of the community, of the city, as you go for permits and all these other things? What has your experience been?
Well, Marshfield is open for business. Working with the city, the community is supportive. The community is just so excited when a new business opens, especially if it's one that caters to the general public. They know about it, they've heard about it, they can't wait to try it. They're very supportive of the community. The city has been super easy to work with. I mean, we're new to all this, really. I mean, we've only done this a few years, and we have questions along the way. And when we ask, we're not afraid to ask questions. And people at the city don't treat us like we're stupid. They jump in and they help and say, "Oh, here, fill this form out, this paperwork. Oh, you have a question about that? Let me help you with it." They've been really good to work with.
Yeah, and to add to that, one of the, you know, with all the, you know, sometimes we'll get calls about businesses outside the area who maybe want to come into the area, or they're a brand new entrepreneur and they're considering opening up. one of the most common questions that we get is, how well does the city work with you? Because that is a deciding factor that I think most people don't know, that a business will not consider moving to the area if they don't feel like the city is going to support them. And I can always reassure them that our city they want everyone to grow. And even if that means, going to city council and, hey, I know that this isn't really in the ordinances right now, would you consider doing this? I cannot stress how much more simpler our job is, because a lot of city officials are so open to, accommodating and welcoming us, and not, our job could be a lot more difficult if they weren't more, if they were a lot more tougher, compared to other cities that I've heard of. So I love the relationship that we have with everyone, and I truly feel like they want our city to continue to grow and make it a place where people enjoy being here.
Good. I can't tell you how excited I am to hear that. You got to. Here's the final question though, and this is a big one. There's somebody out there right now that's looking at this video, and they're going, I've got a great business idea. I want to do it, but I'm scared. Talk to them.
Nobody has ever started a new business venture without being scared. I mean, we're scared every time we buy another property, every time we work with a new tenant, we're scared. But you can't be successful without overcoming that fear. And you know what? Just realize you might fail, but that's okay, because next time you're going to be successful. And we bought a building one time, and the day after we closed, we got a call from a tenant who had a little leak in his roof, and it ended up that the entire roofing system failed, and we had to pay for that. So it can happen. You can have a bad experience, but don't let the fear stop you, because if you get past that and you're successful, it will definitely be worth it.
And my biggest thing is know your why. I've kind of helped other businesses, want to do, like, who wanted to start up, and they've asked me different questions, like kind of like what you just asked. And I always tell people, go back to your initial reason why, and an example I always use is, just because you enjoy making cookies doesn't necessarily mean you should open up a cookie shop. You got to have the whole package. You got to have that passion. And we've worked with businesses who are brand new to that type of business, but they are doing very well because they know how to change their business based on what the customer wants, and they know the whole package, the marketing, they know how to run their business, they know what their customers want, and they stay focused on their initial reason as to why they opened to begin with. And we've considered but turned people down who had a great business, but they just didn't have that passion. Their heart wasn't in it. They just want to make a quick buck, or whatever their reason would be. You got to look at their why, and are they passionate about what they want to do, and utilize resources. I mean, depending on the location, reach out. I mean, they're more than welcome to reach out to us if they have questions. There's Mackey, there's a SCORE program, there's Main Street, there's an ample amount of resources that people can tap into. It's just a matter of knowing who to go to. And
I think if what creates fear is not having all the answers, and I think understanding that admitting to yourself, I don't have all the answers, and that's okay, because I'm not afraid to ask.
Yeah.
I think that's how to overcome those fears, because we don't know everything about this property development. A lot of the stuff we make up as we go along, because
Right.
we don't know, okay, we ran into this roadblock, we've never seen this before, but we're not afraid to ask the questions and do the research, and we're confident that if we run into a roadblock that we've never seen before, that we can find the answer, even if we don't already have the answer. And I think that helps you overcome the fears.
Absolutely. So feel the fear and do it anyway, and know your why. Those are the key thing. And I would just like to say, on behalf of the city, thank you for giving us your input today. I can't think of any guest that would be better for the first one of Experience Marshfield. If you want to get more information from Chris and Erin, their email is right down here below. Feel free to email them, and also you will see them in downtown Marshfield. They're around stop in and say hi to them, say hello. They have so much to offer and so much to give. Thank you very much for watching the first edition of Experience Marshfield. There's going to be more to come.